I'm 28 and I'm for now a financial analyst, because as part of my job, I had to analyze how profitable our department is and found out that it's not that profitable.
Oh no, you literally analyzed yourself out of a job.
I have this passion for talking about finance with people, seeing if I can grow that as like the main career rather than a side thing. One of the things that's somewhat on my bucket list is to record and release an album. Very different from financial coaching.
As soon as you tell us where you're going, the foo falls into place very easily.
That's
for
right.
you. I can tell by your reaction, you haven't completely figured out what you're going to do yet.
Are you from Denver originally?
Colorado Springs, which is about an hour away.
Yeah.
It's Air Force Academy.
Yep, right. Yeah, right. But my high school was like on the Air Force Academy.
Never been to Nashville before.
No, only Memphis, like on a slight trip just going through the state. But
Well,
yeah, we're going to be checking out Nashville.
be careful. You're going to fall in
bit.
love with it because it's one of the coolest places on the planet.
Yeah, I'm also huge into music too. So like, we're excited about checking out all the mics and everything.
Listening
and
music, playing
honky-tonk
music. What's huge into music, man?
Both.
Okay.
So, yeah, like big into playing music. Both. Like mainly drums is like my main instrument, but a little guitar.
Did you know we have a drummer here on the Money Guy team, right?
Yeah.
You know, you sent us all your stuff, and it's super I got impressive, right? Like, so you sent us your net worth statement, right? And it was awesome, kind of seeing where you are, what you have going on. Do you recognize like you're way ahead of the curve for your? Because how old are you, and what do you do for a living?
Yeah, I'm 28, and I'm for now a financial analyst.
Okay, we got to talk more about for now.
For now, because as part of my job, I had to analyze how profitable our company is, or our department is, and found out that it's not that profitable.
Oh no, you literally analyzed yourself out of a job.
Exactly, yeah. So analyze myself out of a job. I have about a month from now before I'm going to be fully let go, and then I get at least 3 months severance, which is, I mean, that's nice.
I mean, it's very noble, but was there not any part of you in your report that from a self-preservation standpoint, you said, hey, why don't we cord off this section of the...
We're not very profitable except for this one department that is wildly
saving you all this money, man. This department, we probably ought to protect this at all costs.
We're so rich, yeah. I mean... I didn't expect that they were going to fully like lay people off with that. So, I mean, I'm lucky that I still get like a little more time before being laid off because a lot of people were right away.
So financial analyst is the industry in which you work like a super niche industry, or is it like a broadly applicable skill set where like finding another job is not going to be a problem?
It's pretty broadly applicable. There's a lot of different companies that you can work for that are looking for financial analysts. The thing is, it's a really hot field right now. So a lot of people are trying to get into that.
Okay.
But now that I have like a little bit of experience, that's probably going to help with
like put you just a few steps in there. Have you already started that process? How's all that going now? Because this is relatively new news, and you're trying to figure out, okay, what's the next step look like, right?
Yeah, I haven't officially applied for anything yet, but I've been looking at a lot of the positions, knowing that I have a month out. I'm torn on between applying for senior analyst positions, which
were you a senior analyst now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and with that, I'm making right now $80,000, but. A lot of other senior analyst positions seem to be a little bit higher. So there's a good chance that I might be able to get like a little bit of a raise there, which would be nice.
Awesome.
But I'm also torn a little bit too, because I know right now I have a good situation, knowing that like I'm in a pretty good spot financially to maybe take a little risk, because I also like don't have kids or any like extra huge responsibilities. So I'm also interested in trying to build a financial coaching practice.
Okay.
Because I love talking about finance with people, and one of the reasons I applied for this show, getting your guys' advice on stuff. But I just love talking finance with people, and I have a big passion for that. And I've done some coaching for people for free, just for friends, family, and people that just might need assistance. So I've done some of that, and I'm interested in pursuing that a little bit, and maybe using a little bit of that severance time to start building up a little bit and seeing if I can get anything. If not, still then applying for other analyst positions.
So one of the questions it sounds like you want to answer is like how to handle time in between jobs. Like what's the appropriate way to tackle that? Well, let's talk about where you are presently, right? Because you've done, obviously you said, hey, I feel like I'm in a really good spot right now. And you were kind enough to share with us a net worth statement. We can see right now that you have a net worth of $200,000 at 28 years old. How did you get there? What was it for folks that are listening out there right now that maybe are like just starting out, they just graduated college? How do they get to where you are right now at 28?
And I don't even see any debt on here either. So I mean, this is really bizarro to me.
When I first graduated college, I was watching a lot of Graham Stephan at the time, and he was fully encouraging, like, if I was young, I'd be staying at home and trying to save up a little extra money as much as I can, save 90% of my income for a year or two. And I'm like, that fine, I'll do that. I'll
You're
sacrifice
like, that makes
a little.
sense. I can do that.
Yeah. So I really saw the compound interest being a huge incentive there to stay at home. So I did that. And then as I was starting
how long did you do that? Like how long into your career did you live at home?
Well, it's interesting timing because I first started making like $38,000 a year right out of college, which was a little tougher. As I was getting closer to moving out, probably within like a year or two, that's when COVID hit.
Oh, wow.
So then I'm like, social life's gone anyways. Yeah. So
might as well stay at home.
Stay a little longer.
I love it.
So I ended up staying at home a little longer, about another 2 years. It never there was no end date like we all expected. But
right.
But yeah, we ended up just like staying at home and saving up a lot of money, and eventually moved out with my brother. So ended up still saving money there, and we just like rented a townhome and just split the cost of that.
Do you remember when you were living at home, what was your savings rate? Because obviously you started out at $38,000, but imagine income increased. Like how much were you able to save by living at home?
It was literally like 90 to 95% of my income.
Graham would be so
wild.
pleased.
Yeah. The whole fire movement and everything. Yeah.
And you extinguished some debt from that too. Didn't you have some student loan debt that you took care of?
Yeah. I did something that's maybe a little bit of middle ground between your guys' mindset and Dave Ramsey's mindset. I saw the big incentive of the people that continue to just invest and take the advantage of the extra arbitrage that you can take of just having a higher return in the market.
Sure.
So I let that grow, and then saw eventually just last year that my income, or the amount that my brokerage had grown, was enough to fully pay off my student loans.
Like just the growth on it.
Just the growth on it was enough to pay it off. I was like, okay, well, I can lock that in.
I'm playing with house money now, right? I'm playing with house money.
I'm not going to get mad at you for that.
Okay, good.
I'm not going to fight you on that at all.
So yeah, I sold the growth there basically. Or
You
the
heard
amount
the
of that.
90% savings rate.
Dude,
How do you
I
get
just-
mad at somebody who's... so no, if you want to extinguish that debt, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that.
Okay, so you're saving 90%. That was at least when you started out, like when you're living at home. But even it's not like you moved out and your behavior changed a ton. What does your current savings look like now? Like how are you building now as someone who's not probably at a 90% savings rate anymore?
Yeah. So when I first moved out with my brother, I was at like 33%.
Okay, but that's still strong.
Still great.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But then after that, he got married. So then he ended up obviously living with his wife. And then I figured out.
They didn't say, hey, just come on.
They didn't want a room.
You were thinking, this is great. Third roommate. We're going to cut rent even cheaper. It's going to be amazing.
Go in thirds. Yeah. But so now moved out to my own just single bedroom like apartment for myself, and still trying to get as much as I can because my emergency fund's a little bit lower. I did lower my savings rate some. I know I'm kind of doing two things at once with saving the cash
to it.
But right now I'm at 18.5% is like my total number that I also came up with that as well.
I love it.
For what my current savings rate is, while I slow that below the 25% just to rebuild the emergency
So
fund.
we have about $4,800 going into your Roth 401k. You get an employer match, and based on your income below $100,000, you get to include that. So you have about 3% or $2,400 match going in.
Yep.
You're maxing out your Roth at $7,000, and then you're doing HSA for $600. So total savings is about $14,800. So where would you say you are in the financial order of operations? I mean, now, when I see this, I kind of have a good feel about it. Where do you think you are in the FOO?
So I know I'm in the rebuild the emergency reserves stage, but I know I'm also doing Roth.
He beat us to it.
He's dabbling.
Yeah, I'm dabbling in a little bit of both.
When we look at your cash right now, you have about $14,000 in cash on hand. Just so we know, what's the monthly burn rate? How much? What's it cost for you to live your life on a month-to-month basis?
$2,600 a month.
26
is like bare minimum needs, no fun.
Now you're falling into one of those things I always ask people. You're giving us the bare bones, what you could make it if you basically probably peeled some potatoes, threw them in a pot of water. I had a different number from our pre-show planning. What's the realistic on what life costs though a month?
Probably closer to $2,900 if I get a little extra fun in there.
Not $3,500.
Is that what you came up with?
I have numbers behind the scenes.
You know,
I think it's around $3,500.
Let's go to the tape, guys.
Yeah,
let's go to the tape. Yeah, when we looked at your budget that you sent, it was great. We know that right now your take home is right under about $4,600. And then you did a great job of kind of breaking out your expenses for us across rent, utilities, groceries, car maintenance, insurance, gym, giving, and one-offs, right? So we have all of these needs. We've got your investments. We can put a pin in that for a moment. And then we have the wants, things like eating out, shopping, equipment lessons, subscriptions, gifts, travel. So we ask you what your living expenses are. You threw out a number like $2,600. That means you'd be completely comfortable first wiping out all those wants, like no eating out, no shopping, no equipment, no lessons, no subscriptions, no gifts, no travel.
I mean, I'd like to have
I'd like to have some of that, right? Okay, okay. And then you even said 2,600, so that's going to trim another $1,000 even out of the needs bucket, right? And you're like, oh, okay. So whenever we tell people this all the time, they're like, oh, well, if I had to really cut to the quick, when it comes to step 4 of the Brian, we have the thing up. When it comes to step 4 of the financial order of operations, we really want you to have, depending on your circumstance, 3 to 6 months of living expenses, but true living expenses. Not like, oh, what would it look like? Because at the end of the day, what we hope is when unknowns happen, like I analyze myself out of a job. We don't want your lifestyle to have to dramatically change. We want you to be able to maintain the same lifestyle as you transition from this season to the next season. So when we look at your overall financial circumstance, I think that your true spending is somewhere closer to like $4,000.
At least $3,500 to $4,000.
$3,500 to $4,000. And so if we're just going to do some little math, not in my head on my calculator, that means that we're probably going to be somewhere around 40,000. No, that was bad math.
But you have a calculator.
Here, we're just going to do this again.
I'm going to do mid-20s. It's going to be somewhere between $20,000 and $25,000.
It's the fives. I can't do the fives, man. 3,500 times 6 months. It's going to be about 21,000, right? So somewhere around $20,000 to $25,000 is probably where you would likely need to be with a emergency fund. And we can see right now you're at 14,000.
Not bad, but we just need to boost it up a little bit to keep you safe.
It does give me a little bit of pause though, because one of the reasons we want emergency funds there is because we want to be able to plan for the unknown unknowns. And it sounds like what you just said to us like 3 minutes ago is you are living in an unknown. So in that realm, does it make you nervous that you only have, I would say, maybe 3 months of living expenses, or are you not so concerned about that?
A little concerned, but I also know that I'm going to get 3 months severance here soon, which that's going to be closer to 20,000.
Great.
Around 19,000.
Awesome.
That's before taxes, so after we'll see. I think that's going to add a bit of a buffer as well. And I had to dip into my emergency fund because of some of those one-off expenses, which it's like taxes ended up being more last year because Colorado had some incentive that they would give every year, and I found out that it was renewed. But then I didn't see that they had an income limit on that, and I had made too much, which is, I mean, good problem to have, but
still a tax problem.
It caused me to unexpectedly have a random extra amount in taxes.
Sure. So the idea is with this 3 months of severance, it's nearly 20,000. In your mind, you're compartmentalizing. Is okay. I know that my emergency fund is probably underfunded to touch. I'm going to take a big chunk of that and dump that in my emergency fund to get it trued up.
Yes.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that makes me feel a little bit.
No, that definitely, because that could get it well over the $21,000 that you calculated out.
All right. So now let's keep going with the net worth statement. I thought it was interesting. You have a couple of different things going on here. You have an IRA rollover account that has a little over $33,000 in it. And then you have sort of two Roth accounts. You have a Roth IRA rollover of about $12,900 and a Roth IRA with about $33,000. What's the difference in those? Why do you have two separate accounts there?
Yeah, I rolled over a 401k into two different rollover accounts. So I had a Roth portion that was my contributions to that 401k. That I moved to the Roth rollover IRA.
Okay.
And then for the Roth IRA, just the one there with the $33,000, that's like my own personal contributions.
Different custodians, or are they the same place?
Same custodian.
So why not just roll the 401k Roth assets right directly into that Roth IRA that you had?
It might not matter, but this was a deep tax question I was curious about, or lawsuit question. I like. One of my big fears is somehow I would lose all $200,000. Like I don't want to lose everything. And I heard that 401k or retirement plan funds are more protected than Roth IRA funds. If something horrible happens and I get sued for something,
risk of protection.
Yeah, just that extra protection there. So I wanted to keep it separate in case that ends up mattering, knowing it might not. But I figured it's easy enough to just set up another account, keep that separate particularly.
Well, there's been some loose legislation. So yes, you are correct. One of the unique things about ERISA accounts is that there is ERISA creditor protection on there. If you were to face a lawsuit, there's a separate level of protection. Generally speaking, though, historically the thought has been is if I roll those ERISA assets out of the ERISA plan, so I take it out of a 401k and put it in an IRA, I end up losing that creditor protection. Now, there have been some recent legislations come out that has maybe combated that a little bit, that maybe it does follow. What I don't know is that keeping them separate in two separate IRAs is actually accomplishing anything additional. Okay. Meaning most often we see people consolidate accounts when they roll it over. If they're going to consolidate pre-tax assets, they'll do it into a traditional IRA rollover, Roth assets into a Roth IRA. So that way you just have one account housed in one place, and that account is likely going to have the same protection as any other types of accounts you're going to open. if it is at that custodian with the same registration. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does.
Because that leads into the next question we had. When we think about consolidation, you have a taxable brokerage account and you also have a cashback brokerage account. What's going on there?
Yeah. So taxable brokerage, I originally was throwing a lot of money in that, expecting for it to be a down payment on a house.
Okay.
Which, as I continued contributing to that, I was looking at buying a house at one point.
Sure.
But that's when house prices kept going up and up and up. And the same amount that I was raising my brokerage account to just stayed at like 20% down payment. It was running away from me. So that made things a little bit tough. So I've kept that in there as potential future house down payment money. And then also the cashback part. I at one point had the Fidelity 2% cashback card that then
not anymore. Did you get away with it? I mean, did you do away with it?
It doesn't work with Rocket Money, which I love using. But then I switched to SoFi, which also has a cashback. I mean, there was also convenience out of SoFi just because I was using them for my bank anyway. And then also, if you use them as your bank and you have that card, you get 2.2%. So me trying to maximize everything, I'm like,
so are those at two different? Are those at two different custodians?
So that's a SoFi cashback brokerage account. That's not Fidelity.
That's the Fidelity one on there, but I also now have the cashback through SoFi.
And where does the SoFi cashback deposit to? Separate?
Just right into the bank account.
Just right in your bank account.
Yeah.
Are both of these accounts held at Fidelity, the taxable brokerage account and the cashback account?
Yes.
So in theory, those could be consolidated into one because they're the same.
It'd be easy
again,
enough.
It just makes life, in our experience, life a little bit easier. It makes tax reporting a little bit easier. Just less things to have to keep up with, especially when you have a bunch of moving pieces. And it sounds like in a second we're going to talk about what you want to do and like as your next endeavor. So again, you're in a great spot. 28 years old, $200,000 total net worth. Now let's talk about where you're going, like what the next steps are. All right, so you've analyzed yourself out of this job, and now you're trying to figure out what's next. Walk us through what you're thinking the next step is, or your plan moving forward is.
I worked at a place that also managed retirement accounts for a while, so I got really deep into retirement and just finance in general. But then I started to find that like I have this passion for talking about finance with people and helping give especially like insights to people who might not have learned anything before. So I've had that as like a side passion of mine. And then, now seeing that I'm in a place where I have less risk, just at least personally, I don't have any like responsibilities outside of just myself surviving. So I'm looking at, doing the coaching as seeing if I can grow that as like the main career rather than a side thing anymore. And then I am also just torn of, do I go to another financial analyst position and then continue growing that on the side? And then I just have other like passion things that aren't as much career focused that I'm also excited about. So I'm also really big into music. One of the things that's somewhat on my bucket list is to like record and release an album.
Okay.
So very different from financial coaching, but I just love music so much and I have some songs that I like want to be able to get out there. And I mean, that would cost a little bit, like around like $5,000.
Is this vocal and instruments? Or
Yeah.
I mean, so you got lyrics as well as full songs written?
Yeah, full songs written with lyrics.
What
singing and everything.
genre are we performing this in?
It's like singer-songwritery, like maybe
like
not
standards
super country.
type, like or country? Oh, you've thrown out a few things.
Not super country, but
just kind of country.
kind of country.
I love it.
So folksy.
Maybe a little folksy in some ways, but a little more like singer-songwritery stuff
Like Chris
too.
Stapleton.
Yeah, maybe a little less country than Stapleton. But
Okay, let's start with the first one. All right, you said, I have this idea. I want to grow coaching as my main gig instead of the side gig.
Yeah.
Like, walk me through the mindset there, right? Because most often what we see happen is someone they'll go to college, they'll get a degree, they'll begin to pursue a vocation, and they may decide, I like this vocation, but maybe it's not what I want to do forever. They slowly begin building up something on the side. They do a side gig until that side gig reaches critical mass to where then the side gig can become the main thing. Walk me through the mindset that you have right now of, okay, rather than trying it that way, what if I just dive headfirst into the making the side gig that doesn't presently exist the main thing?
I have some confidence in it just because I've done some coaching for people before and had really good results from that. And then I've already been like referred to other people because of that. It's not reached any critical mass though. So I know that that's a big risk.
Did you get paid for it or was it free?
I've always done free, but I have some referrals for people that right now are like wanting to schedule actual paid ones. So very early stages and maybe a bit aggressive to switch fully to doing that full time in a month from now. But I'm curious to see like if I could grow it enough over 3 months to at least help start getting a little bit more of the foot in the door.
What I'm not hearing you say is, man, I really just love financial analyzing, and I'm just not going to feel like my true self if I'm not financial analyzing. I want to do this other vocation. Walk me through the thought process to like, okay, I'm going to start my own thing and be a financial coach, as opposed to just pivoting careers and moving towards like a financial advising career. Hey, I want to go become a financial advisor and figure out what that looks like. Walk me through one over the other.
Yeah. So I am interested like in either advising or coaching, but as I've been looking at advising, and I have gone through this several different times looking at that, that there's a lot of positions that are not fee-based advisors like you guys do, which I admire a ton.
Right.
Because I just am hesitant to work for a place that so heavily incentivizes one type of like investment, like life insurance. And I'm skeptical of places like that.
Yeah.
So
it's the majority of the industry.
Exactly. So I've tried.
But there are firms out there like ours that on the other side that are on the fee only
and it
side.
is more of an apprenticeship. I mean, like everybody who we hire to be financial planners, we tell them, don't go get business. We want you to kind of be the best version of yourself. Get the 4 years, 5 years of experience, become a monster of knowledge. And then, of course, I want you to go get business, but we'll inbound market your business too. But what's wrong with getting the reps in before we jump full head first into this?
I've searched quite a few different places in Denver. I'm sure there's some that are fee based, but I was having such a tough time finding one that I trusted as being credible.
Access to the career pipeline.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've fully looked at your guys' website for careers too, in case you guys hire remote. So
I love it.
If you build a bound wealth in Denver, just let me know.
So the idea is, okay, there's not an opportunity for me to go get a job as a financial advisor in the area in which I live, so I'm just going to start this thing. But we know that right now, because anytime we face a financial decision, there's an opportunity cost conversation we have to have. If I do this, that means I do not do this. Or if I don't do this, that means that I can do this. Well, we know that right now, you said, hey, as a financial analyst, I make like $80,000 a year. And I'm likely, if I'm gonna go pursue that field, I might even be able to move into a senior financial analyst role where I'm gonna get paid even more. So maybe it's $80,000, $90,000, $100,000 a year. That's a lot of like income and opportunity to walk away from. I don't know what your fee schedule or what the cost you'll charge for your coaching services is, but I got to imagine you got to see a lot of clients to be able to replace $100,000 of income. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, it would probably be several months or a year or years we'd have to see before fully getting up to that point. Looking at the normal coaching cost from what I've seen for people who like have done like Ramsey coaching and other just independent coaches as well, they tend to charge between like $120 to $150-ish. And I'd want to be able to help out people that are more lower income.
Is that like hourly? Like $150 an hour, $150 for a plan? How does that work? $150 subscription?
Like $150, I think, for an hour for a session with them.
Okay.
But then they are prepping before that as well, I'm sure.
It.
This is all new data, so it helps. And right now, I see two paths that Collin, just talking this out with you. You have to choose your hard in some ways. Like the easy low-lying fruit is obviously just be a financial analyst. Yeah. You'll have this severance come your way that potentially if you get a job fast enough, you now get to
found money.
Roll that right back into all these other assets.
Right.
If you are going to go this road less traveled, which by the way, I mean, we've resembled this path. So I mean, it'd be a shame for us not to at least have the conversation and tell you some of the things that might be coming in your future. I would ask you, have you put on your 3D glasses though? Because one of the first things, if you're going to do this big jump, because you, in your own words, you'd be taking on more risk. Have you actually written out kind of like the 5-year business plan and then written it in what we call the 3D glasses version? I mean, you've got your dream plan, you've got your down to earth of what you think will happen, and then you don't skip a step and you actually do the do-do plan too. When things go really bad and maybe getting, just like I found the do-do plan very easily when I was, I'm glad I did that part of my business plan, is because I thought everybody in my hometown that I grew up with, that their parents would be like, oh my gosh, Brian was such a nice guy.
Of course,
he's so good. Did you see how good he was in math and on the math teams? All these, I'm going to go hire that smart boy. He's going to be great. And the problem is, you start a business and nobody shows up because nobody wants to go work with the startup company. They want to work with the company that's kind of an assured shoe-in on success. And so I had a really hard road that first 3 years. And I always tell people, when you start an entrepreneurial type business, you need to probably plan that it's going to take 3 years to get traction. Okay. And you got to have a plan that will cover all of your expenses, because your net worth statement looks completely different to me if you're going down the entrepreneurial path, because it's way too. Now fortunately you have that taxable brokerage account, but I'm going to tell you, we're not worried about houses anymore. That you're going to probably need a lot of that brokerage account just to be your seed capital, so the dream doesn't just dry out and die because you didn't give it enough time to catch traction. Which way are you really leaning, or is this kind of one of those things where since you have possibilities, you're like, hey, this might be an interesting thing, but this is only a 10% chance, or are you telling us this is, you're in this? I mean, what handicap this a little bit for us.
Even if it's part-time, I'm in that whole business, and I want to be active in that and continue just growing my knowledge more and more. So I think either way, I'm in it, but it's just a matter of, am I in it as a full-time thing versus on the side? And maybe knowing that, hey, I'm losing my job. And also, going to be in this situation where, is that emergency fund going to last long enough to grow that? And do I want to take that risk? I see the questions there. And I think it might make sense to push it towards being a side thing until it reaches that critical mass.
Now, because that's what I'm thinking about is Brian always uses the analogy of cash and liquidity being like oxygen for us, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's one thing if you decide to go scuba diving and you have an oxygen tank on, you can last a lot longer. Like you can actually enjoy that ride. But if you just take a deep breath and you're trying to hold on to that breath and you go underwater, it's not going to be very long before you have to start freaking out. And when I think about, you have a monthly burn of like $4,000, right? Yeah. Or let's call it $3,500. Or let's call it $3,000. And you're billing at $150 an hour. It's very easy math to figure out how many hours do I have to bill to just do that. And that doesn't factor in any sort of overhead, any sort of other costs.
Yeah.
The amount of pressure and tension that exists, if it's this side thing that I'm doing on nights and weekends when I have time and I don't have to get that billed hour to make sure that I keep my lights on, versus, I've got income coming in. I have, I've got this analyst job. I can put as much or as little time into this side gig as I want so I can do it. Do you understand what I'm saying? There's a different level of pressure that you're going to put on yourself if you say, hey, I got to go do this. Because the way I see it, you have a $20,000 severance and you have $14,000 in cash. That's going to give you $34,000. Mm-hmm. That's all you got before you have to have enough billable hours that you can pay rent. Yeah. And that's just a
risky spot.
That's a frightening spot to be in. Now, a lot of people think risk and reward, the way it works is the more risk I take, the greater the reward. Those are probabilistic. It's a probability that if I take more risk, I can get a greater reward. But the other issue of risk is I can take more risk that ends up completely tanking my situation, that ends up putting me in the spot that I don't ultimately want to be in.
Right.
I love the fact that you want to be a financial coach. I love it that it's something you're passionate about. Mm-hmm. And I think there is even a way and method for you to move in that direction. I get real nervous when your ability to eat depends on your ability to get billable hours of coaching in for this brand new business.
First year I went out on my own. Mm-hmm. I went from right under, I had a great gig. I never, making close to six figures. Mm-hmm. And first year, I think I made $17,000.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And that's with, by the way, that's with me doing tax prep. Mm-hmm. I have a skill set that allowed me that I had an escape hatch that if I couldn't find money from being a financial advisor, I could go do a tax return for $300, $400, and so I'm almost embarrassed if I had to go pull my financials and tell you how much of that $17,000 was probably tax prep more than it was financial planning, because it's hard because you're going to suffer because I was approximately 28 years old when I started my company, a financial firm. It's hard to convince 50-year-olds to give 28-year-olds money. Fair. I'm just being honest with you, and I thought I had the hometown advantage. Yeah. And it just came up zeros. Now it's all, as you can see, it's all worked out beautifully. Yeah. I mean, so taking a risk can turn out to be a magical thing, but you have to plan accordingly. I was very blessed that I had built up enough cash because my wife and I were very deliberate.
You saved up a year's salary before you actually.
Yeah, I mean, we had built up a lot of cash to make sure. So you'd probably, if that brokerage account is invested, you'd probably want to try to in a tax efficient way as possible, turn that into liquid capital as well. And then I would also try to, because you're in this new phase where, you see all kind of opportunities because you have this severance money coming your way. The other things like this album, unless the album's going to be your thing, just like the financial coaching's going to be your thing, you can't be the master of all domains. You kind of need to choose what the next thing is and then get just very sober serious about it. If you're taking this in a different direction of you want to start an entrepreneurial endeavor, we've got to get, really serious about, you got to start, dumping the water out of the boat to get yourself as lean as possible, because every dollar is going to be very valuable because you really don't, it's not all the retirement assets you're never going to touch. So it's really your taxable brokerage account, which is $75,000. You need to figure out what the net tax after tax amount that could become. And then you compare that with, and add your savings and you add your severance after tax, take into account the taxes. Now you've got your powder money, and you now can back into the math of how many months of protection does this give me while I'm trying to become this new version of myself and start this new endeavor.
That makes sense. So I can recognize that. Yeah, that would be maybe too big of a risk to take just right away. But yeah, maybe I'd take a small portion of time between officially being laid off and starting my new position to just like get it going a little more on the side.
I can tell by your reaction, you haven't completely figured out what you're going to do yet. Is that true? Is that a fair statement?
Well, I know I'm just like the favorite thing I've ever done as far as potential career things is financial coaching. So to me, that's the thing I like know that I want to do. It's just a matter of when can I fully pull the trigger on getting that as a full-time thing. So yeah, I feel confident in that part.
And one thing I would think through is you don't know how long it's going to take you to be a successful financial coach, right? If you make this your main gig, it has to work or you have to find something else, right? Like if you try it for 5-6 months and it's just not taken, then you have to abandon this thing that you love so that you can go pay the bills. Yeah. I do see a scenario where, hey, I know I have a skill set that I can go get a job to pay the bills. You give yourself plenty of time to let yourself be a successful financial coach. And you may catch enough traction that after a year, after 2 years, you can make that flip. And we've seen people all the time that turn their side gig into their main gig, but they give themselves enough time to allow that to happen as opposed to forcing it to have to happen right now.
Right.
If the dream plan and the down-to-earth plan don't work out and you have to go the do-do plan route, well, then you have to start making decisions you don't want to have to make. And you've already said you're at 28 years old. You're ahead of the curve. So you've given yourself some margin to be able to do some things. I'd hate to see you make a decision that isn't putting you behind.
Right.
Where you didn't have to do that.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. And yeah, so then does it still then make sense for me to like maybe continue going as a financial analyst, but then focusing on the coaching on the side? And because I'm still incredibly passionate about that. And that fully would be a dream, like a career of mine. I love that so much.
That's the more balanced approach.
Yeah. I like that. Okay. You try not to have favorites when it comes to planning, but I like
that's
that
the one.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. Here's what I love about it. You said you're 28. I'm not married. Don't have kids. Don't have all these obligations. So nights are available to you. They're open. Right. Weekends are available to you. They're open. You have some margin in your life that maybe later on in life you would not have. That if you wanted to work 2 jobs, because that's essentially what you're doing, financial analyst by day, financial coach by night, and working those 2 jobs, you actually have the capacity where you can do that right now. And I think that's a great solution without taking all this risk that could potentially derail someone who's well ahead of the curve right now.
I'm open, by the way, Collin, if you want to. I mean, I'd love to hear your rendition of Tennessee whiskey, and we could go ahead and figure out if we could go ahead and stratify.
In your mind, he's Chris Stapleton. That's
I'm trying to give him every opportunity to make sure I want to be the whisperer of Collin's dreams here. I want to make sure that we have scratched all the itches and we have it all figured out.
Here's what I think is I don't want us to lose sight of the things that you have done thus far that are incredibly fantastic. We know that right now you have $189,000 of assets, of liquid assets built up. We know, because we talk about the wealth multiplier on the show all the time, that just based on what you've done now, even if you didn't save any more, if you didn't add any more to it, you are already on your way for that $186,000. If it all stayed invested, by the time that you got to retirement, it could turn into $5.5 million.
Yeah.
Just based on the work you've done from graduation to 28. $5.5 million.
It's amazing.
Now, but you even said, hey, well, I've got maybe this money I have in my taxable accounts for a house. So even if we take that out and we just look at the retirement assets, based on the work that you've done for retirement, you've got $112,000. You're already on your way to be a multimillionaire already, right? So you've done some wonderful things. I just don't want to see you get in a spot where you derail this trajectory, where something happens where you have to start making some dire decisions, because then you do get behind the 8 ball. You've done awesome things. You even hear us talk about, this is another one. We talk all the time about these like money guy markers, like these mile markers. Hey, where should you be at age 30? Where should you be at 40? Where should you be at 50? You know that we say that by age 30, we want you to have liquid assets, a portfolio built up of at least one time your annual salary, you're already smoking that.
Yeah.
Like you are already ahead of the money guy markers. My hope for you is that you will be able to still accomplish all the goals that you want to accomplish and do all the things you want to do and still be able to hit those markers. I see the financial analyst job as a means to be able to ultimately live the life that you want to live. It might just be the conduit that takes you to your great, big, beautiful tomorrow of being the financial coach. But it gives you time to get there.
I relate a little bit more to that thinking of, all right, let's be safe with it. And still, I mean, it's such a motivating thing because I know everything I put into that would also then be helping somebody, but then also could then turn that into the dream career that I would love. So yeah, I think that makes sense. One thing I was curious about with my retirement there is, I know we looked at that and saw that like it's going to turn into what I think it was like $3.5 million.
Yeah, just retirement assets.
So that leaves me wondering, I know that's going to matter in terms of like where I have my money invested of retirement versus brokerage. So I'm wondering, do I still contribute 25% to try to keep that in retirement? Is that the goal? Or should I split it up a little bit more and just take like bare minimum match and make sure I do the minimum like Roth or maximum Roth IRA contributions and just like take that and then throw the rest into brokerage since like, am I overfunding my retirement?
Well, I think you're asking the wrong question at the wrong time right now.
Okay.
Only because you don't know what the next steps look like. Because for you, 401k technically is about to go away, right? Like you do not know what opportunity is going to be available for retirement savings for you 3 months from now until, once you get past that. You have to figure out what your next steps are. What I see more realistically playing out is let's say that you do get another job and let's say it's just $80,000, but then you do start to do this financial coaching thing on the side and maybe you have some success with it. And then year one, you make another $20,000 and then this income goes up and this income goes up. And what's going to happen is it's going to create an allowance for you to save even more so that not only are you able to save all the retirement assets, but you'll also be able to save the brokerage assets. Your circumstance is so in flux right now, it'd be very difficult to design a foo for you because what's going to be available to you 6 months from now is very different than what's available for you today.
Well, it's only hard to design it because we don't know where you're going.
That's right.
Yeah.
As soon as you tell us where you're going, the foo falls into place very easily for you.
Okay.
Because that's why I want to make sure everybody understands this thing is still an all-terrain vehicle. It can handle anything. It's just, but you got to make sure you put into the navigation system where you're going so that you don't get lost, wasting efforts or resources in the wrong places.
I think, what I would be wanting to do is likely then going to a financial analyst position that hopefully would be at least be the same, maybe a slight upgrade in terms of pay, and then going a lot harder on financial coaching at night and then seeing if I can get to that critical mass to then switch that to being the full-time thing. But then I need to build a good cash reserve.
And you can approach it with the same fervor. If I were sitting on your side of the table and I were doing this, even if I had the financial analyst position, I'm still, for the coaching, I'm still setting deadlines. And if growing that is something that matters, okay, here's the list of 50 people I'm going to call this week. And then here's the list of 50 people I'm going to call this week. And here's the list of the Rotary Club or whatever those things are. However you're going to, if I'm going to do YouTube videos, I'm going to make sure that I get a new video out every single week. Like I'm going to approach it with the same level of fervor as though it were my only thing. In reality, knowing that, okay, I've got my bases covered with my analyst job.
Yeah.
Right? Does that I don't want the analyst job to be the thing to cause you to not pursue it as aggressively and as you would have otherwise. If you can have the analyst job and still pursue the other thing, I don't see, you're going to literally stack the deck in your favor of having success with this thing. Even if the coaching is not your main gig, I would still prepare a business plan for it. Hey, these are the things I'm going to do. This is even if it's my side gig, this is my dream plan, this is my downer, this is my doo-doo. And these are the steps I'm going to take over 1 week, over 1 month, over 6 months, over 1 year. So that way you really are treating it like a real business. Because if you don't treat it that way, then it is just a hobby. It's no different than, and not that I'm suggesting music being a hobby is a bad thing, but that's the thing that differentiates it. The level of intentionality behind each one of them is what will give it the necessary power to become your main gig.
I resonate with that really well. So that makes a lot of sense to me.
What other questions do you have for us? What else can we speak to that might be helpful for you as you think about your next steps?
One I'm curious about is just staying motivated, because I know I'm in a good spot for my age, but it's also like I know the difference between $0 and $5,000 is $5,000 and it feels huge. But now seeing if I have like all of a sudden 200,000 versus 205,000, it feels more or less meaningless, even though I know it's not, and it's still like a $5,000 gain. So I don't know, like as you reach those higher levels of crossing 100,000 versus 200,000, like if I'm putting in 6,000 or 7,000 in like a Roth IRA every year, but then market fluctuation throughout a week can sometimes be enough to like change it just the same amount. It feels like, I know it's not going into an abyss, but like, how do you stay motivated with investing there?
I really think, and this is going to sound so silly, I think the wealth multiplier is your friend there. Because even small sums at your age at 28, what's the difference in 7,000 versus not doing the Roth this year? You go see what 7,000 for a 28-year-old can turn into by the time you get to 65. Yeah. And it will blow your mind. You do that with $1,000, what it can turn into. You recognize that when you have a long enough timeline, even those small incremental changes can have these huge ripple effects downstream. That's why you want to keep doing it. Man, the more I can get in, the earlier I can get it in, the better I can do it, the more it's going to be able to compound, the bigger that snowball is going to get as it continues rolling down the mountain.
Well, also, you laid out that you see a monthly market change is bigger than your contributions could be, and that kind of dissuades you. I would say one of the illustrations we've done on some of our milestone episodes is we say, if you have 100,000, 200,000, you have 200,000, if you just let it grow upon itself, how long would it take to double? And you can use the rule of 72 or whatever you want. But what I always challenge people is watch what happens, though, if you start adding and you choose, is it 20%, is it 25%, is it just your Roth IRA? If you start putting what your annual contributions are on top of it, when you see that number now double in 4 years versus 7 or 8 years, you start realizing yes, on a small incremental scale of the month, yes, the market change was bigger than my monthly savings. However, the consistent behavior of building on top of it is what will accelerate it even more. And then I want to challenge you, you are way ahead of the curve right now. When we showed you that chart and we showed you the milestones or the money guy markers at 1 or 3 times, you're ahead right now, and you should embrace that and be happy with it. But it wouldn't be that hard in a few decisions for you to be right on the curve, and then fast forward another 2 or 3 years, you might even be behind the curve if you didn't nurture this and just make sure you respect it, because you're not assured. You're way ahead of the curve that you will be on the make wealth side of things before we reach maintain wealth. You're way ahead of the curve on the make wealth, but you're not actually wealthy yet.
Right.
I mean, let's be honest. It's not like this is a multi-million-dollar. It's a great portfolio. Great portfolio for a 28-year-old. But that's the thing. And you hear us when we do all of our net worth by age and those shows, we always try to caution the 20-somethings who are way ahead of the curve, because you are using the wealth multiplier and you're saying, oh my gosh, this is going to be $20 million if I do nothing. Maybe. I mean, there's a lot that goes in between $200,000 and $10 million. And we just need to, let's get you to your first million. You've already reached the $100,000 milestone, but there's still a lot of ocean between you and the first million. Let's make sure that actually you stay on that path. And because I don't like it when young people who are still at the beginning of their journey are already doing decisions like the maintain wealth phase when you're not there yet.
I can try to keep that motivation going, and I'll keep checking the wealth multiplier and seeing and that is the motivation.
The way I stay motivated, annual net worth statement, I just get excited. Every year that I do it, I just get excited seeing how the numbers change, because then the more things you have going on, you've got maybe it's just your Roth contribution, but your 401k, and then you see it year over year, you're like, holy cow, this thing's moving. So if you're not tracking your net worth annually, you absolutely should be. And you should tell all your coaching clients they should also, because it's an awesome thing to be doing.
Yeah. I've done it monthly, and maybe that's also where there's a little less
why. If you,
motivation.
You'll never see your grass grow if you stare at it every day. You got to give yourself some time, step away from it, and then when you look back, you'll be, holy cow, I can't believe it covered that much ground.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Awesome. What other questions do you have for us?
I'm also curious. My pre-tax money almost doubles what I have in Roth money, so it's like 2 to 1. Does it make sense for me to take some of the pre-tax money that I had from my 401k previously, so from my employer, and converting some of that to Roth? I know that'd be a bigger tax bill, and I'd have to save up to cover that.
What's your marginal rate right now? Are you 22?
22.
22 doesn't get me as excited as 12.
That's right.
I mean, if you had an extended say you start this new endeavor and you had the same success I did and you make $15,000 your first year.
Give me a lower tax bracket this
now
year.
Potentially you could convert some money. Now you see the conflict you have is because even though you could convert, you might need that money for it to be your powder money. So you're going to see the drama and that's why we always do the financial planner answer is it depends. Is you have to tell us the direction you're going, and then we can take those variables and tell you what the optimal path is. Right now, 22%. Plus, does you have a state income tax?
Yes. Yeah.
So what is that? What's the marginal rate on that?
I don't fully know, but it's like
probably 6, 7, 8, somewhere in there.
Yeah,
I would think
maybe even a little under that. But
but even if it's 5%, I mean, if you add that to your 22, you're at 27%. So you're not. It's not a slam dunk that you should start doing Roth conversions all over the place.
Right.
If your income in a prolonged way was really low, and you could get below 12% on your federal tax rate. Now we're like, yeah, that's historically that's a pretty incredible thing at my age with the compounding, tax-free growth. But I wouldn't get in a hurry while you have so many question marks on what your future looks like.
I think there's going to be opportunities in the future for you to begin or for you to continue building Roth assets. I mean, in your 401k, are you doing traditional or Roth form? Roth. So you're already building it in your Roth salary deferrals. You're already building it when you're doing your Roth IRA contributions.
Yep.
You're going to keep building tax-free dollars. I don't think that you have to be super aggressive about accelerating that tax bill today, because I agree, 22% is just not. It's not that exciting relative to like 0% or 12%.
Yeah. And then I'm curious about this one, Brian. I know you said recently on an episode that you like dollar cost averaging weekly in your accounts.
Yeah.
I also have been doing that because especially seeing some of the more recent volatility, like knowing the more frequently I'm contributing, odds are I'm dollar cost averaging better.
Now, what was your monthly purchase though?
It was $580 or $538 for that last month.
Okay.
But then there's other months because I think that's what it is.
Only
It's $100 a month.
Yeah.
Or $100 a week.
Look, I'm a mess from a behavioral standpoint.
Yeah.
I'm doing it. It's not. It doesn't mean it's the best way. Just because you hear me say some of my crazy ideas doesn't. And I think I try to give a disclaimer every time I say that. Is that I know that it doesn't matter if you looked at the delta between me investing weekly versus if I just batched it all to monthly.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure probably the hassle factor is not being overcome, but it sure is fun from a behavioral scratch the itch standpoint for me. So I'll give you the same freedom because statistically it's probably not that big of a difference that you could just make this a monthly purchase.
Yeah.
And that would probably be the most efficient way to do it. But if you find that you actually get enjoyment from it being weekly and there is some behavioral benefits from that, then I'm not going to pick on anybody for doing the same things I'm doing.
Okay, that's fair.
I know you're making fun of it.
I'm not,
Because it is. It's not worth the hassle factor. I will admit it's not worth it, the hassle factor.
I want you to do the thing that's going to give you the highest likelihood of sticking to the plan and staying on the plan. And if that's buying every week, then buy every week. If that's buying every month, buy every month. Whatever that thing is for you specifically that's going to allow you to stay the course, I want you doing that thing.
And I don't want people creating behaviors that make their life stressful too. And that's the other thing, because we had a guest on recently that she was doing so many things that I felt like she was overwhelming her financial decision making.
Yeah.
If this is just one of those one-offs because you just have a way that you're wired and this is a positive for you, then do it. But if this is something where this is one more distraction and something that already feels overwhelming, I would encourage people to make your life as simple as possible when it comes to finances.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, and I relate so many ways that you think about money as well, and the stories you've said. So, I also have that itch of like wanting to just every week. It feels nice, but then there is that burden sometimes where you have 5s. But I'm going to be maxing it every year regardless.
I love it.
Yeah.
Love it. All right, are you ready for your homework?
Yes.
Okay, here's your homework that I wrote down. First thing, this is just kind of blocking and tackling. We wanted to get your emergency fund up. You said the severance is going to do that. Make sure you actually do that, right? We came up with somewhere between $20,000 to $25,000 for an appropriate emergency fund. Step 2, and this is kind of like big picture, is you got to decide your path. What path are you going to go down? And then once you design that path, what are the next steps you're going to take? So if you're going to make financial coaching the main gig, what's the immediate next 1, 2, 3, 4 steps towards that? If you're going to go get the financial analyst job, what's the next 1, 2, 3, 4 steps towards that? And then either path that you go on, the last thing for you is make sure you build a business plan. Build use your 3D glasses, do your dream plan, your down-to-earth plan, and then your do-do plan. Either way you go, and then hold yourself accountable. Make sure you actually see it through, because I would love a year from now, 2 years from now, we follow up, we get to hear how successful the financial coaching business is. I'd love to hear that.
In the meantime, because I know after you record this show, you've never been to Broadway.
Nope.
And you go to some honky tonks.
Yep.
I want you to send us a video of you up on stage singing some of that Tennessee whiskey.
Whiskey.
I'm not letting this music dream go completely away either. So I'm fully expecting an interactive video that we can share with the audience so they can be a part of your journey as well.
Fun. Yeah. Cool. Sounds good.
Bo, if somebody wanted to join us for an episode of Making a Millionaire, what do they need to do?
That's right. If you'd like to be a guest on Making a Millionaire, you can go to moneyguide.com/apply. Or if you'd like to check out any of our free resources, you can go to moneyguide.com/resources.
Guys, we have a blast creating content, helping people live their best financial lives so they can also build their great, big, beautiful tomorrow. I'm your host, Brian Preston, Mr. Bo Hansen. Collin, thanks for joining us. Money Guide team, out.
Making a Millionaire is hosted by Brian Preston and Bo Hansen. Brian and Bo are partners at Abound Wealth Management. Abound Wealth Management is a registered investment advisory firm regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commission in accordance and compliance with the securities laws and regulations. Abound Wealth Management does not render or offer to render personalized investment or tax advice through Making a Millionaire. The information provided is for informational purposes only, may not be suitable for all investors, and does not constitute financial, tax, investment, or legal advice. All investments involve a degree of risk, including the risk of loss. The guests featured on Making a Millionaire are not clients of Abound Wealth Management at the time of recording. Their participation should not be considered a testimonial or endorsement of Abound Wealth Management.